coming to you today from Colorado and doing our budget exercise at Colorado State University tomorrow out here. And so I have the next generation on my mind. And so this bipartisan bill that you've been working on reminds me of how so many things that are done in Washington disproportionately affect young people. And do we need to do a better job at educating young people about federal budget policy? And, you know, in your mind, what are some of the things maybe we could do to engage that next generation? Because a lot of the things that the big plans you're working on will really make a huge difference. Some of the things, the decisions that Congress is making, and then more importantly, some of the decisions Congress is failing to make as it relates to the budget disproportionately affects young people. Do you agree?
All of it does. You are exactly right. And my career prior to running for Congress was very much involved with trying to get young people to understand fiscal policy, budget policy, what those trade-offs look like, why we have to make them. And I do think we have a lot to do to educate young people. They come in, I love them. They make up the heart and soul of my office and the campaigns I've run. But, you know, understanding that when you choose one thing, it precludes choosing something else is really, you know, you have to work with people on that and to understand the idea around trade-offs. And one of the challenges in Washington right now is, you know, we don't have a balanced budget amendment. We don't have any kind of trade-off sense that we are making these kinds of trade-offs, and trade-offs have to be made. And it's very distinct from the state level, where of course I cut my teeth as a budget director in the Senate during the Great Recession, and have worked on state and local finance for a long, long time. And there people really do, you get that deep sense of trade-off. You know, if you're going to do this, then you can't do that. And I think at the federal level, a lot of that has been lost, and we need to restore that.
Yeah, I think that we're going to get a grand exercise in that when you come back on the reconciliation bill, this next bill. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me the budget resolution authorized a bill up to 3.5 trillion to be offset by 1.75 trillion. Now, that doesn't mean that all of that has to be spent or all of that has to be raised and offset. That's just what is authorized in the budget resolution. What you will have to do now is actually write the bill. And it seems to me that that's going to make the bipartisan infrastructure bill almost look simple by comparison. But so I wanted to ask you, what are your priorities, you know, if you were writing that bill, that you hope for in the reconciliation bill?
So I think you're exactly right. And I just stood up and did a town hall with this. And of course, after the storm of the negotiation that we had over the budget resolution and the bipartisan bill. And I just said, look, my constituents, they are all, you know, middle class, pragmatic, largely parents of children. You know, they want good things for their kids. They know we have huge needs, but they're very practical and recognize that you have to pay for things. You've got to offset things. So I was like, look, you know, there are agreements. There are all sorts of places where we can, you know, find ways to pay for these bills, but it's going to be very challenging to do all of the priorities that we have in here. The child tax credit alone, if we were to extend that over the full 10-year period, is $1.1 trillion. And that eats up that 3.5 trillion, assuming we can pay for it really quickly. And just one of the very good things that came out of this negotiation that we had was, one, I was able to have a lot of conversations with the Biden administration, and they very much reiterated their commitment to, you know, paying for the whole bill and trying to make sure that we scale things appropriately so that we can pay for it. Additionally, we had an agreement to, I guess the one way to characterize it, pre-conference this bill. So work with the Senate at the same time as the House develops this bill. And so I think that, you know, getting that date certain on the bipartisan bill, plus having this commitment to working in tandem with the Senate, I think will help us make more deliberative and thoughtful policy as we sort through that legislation. But things that are key priorities for me are things like healthcare expansion. I ran on affordable quality healthcare, And a piece of that is Medicaid expansion. Georgia is one of 12, 13 states that has not expanded Medicaid. And to terrible both human cost as well as fiscal cost. We pay very high insurance premiums, in part because we have huge uncompensated care in our community, and obviously have lots of people who are, working people or people who want to work who only have health care through the emergency room, and so really don't get good health care. Often pay a very, very steep price in terms of their health. For that failure to expand Medicaid. So that's a huge one. I'm leading the way in the House on that piece of legislation. We also pay very high insurance premiums. And so one of the really important provisions in the American Rescue Plan was the funding to help bring down the cost of health insurance premiums for many, many people in the district, not just low income, but many middle class families.